Hey guys, back again. Okay, so if you remember last video, we talked about the child, parent, adult dynamic in a child work. So this is what we're going to continue on. This is a little bit of theory, but I'm telling you, it is well worth it for you to get an understanding of where you're actually at within your own dynamical self. I think that's a new word I just made up, dynamical. But we are the dynamics of parent, child, adult, and we're going to look at how you function in each of those parts. So do you remember we talked about the natural, how you came out, very natural, childlike, just authentic, who you are, and then you had to adapt. Yeah, so we're going to look at those two parts. And so I want you to draw on a bit of paper this. I don't know if you can you see that the right way around? So we've got parent, natural adapted, adult, natural adapted, and child, natural adapted. It doesn't really matter, just write a little thing so you can keep a check, okay? And we're going to go through it and see how you function in those different parts of you, okay? And it'll all make sense as we go. And my only word of encouragement is don't get hung up on the numbers. It's just a way of you understanding how you are in those aspects of yourself. Okay, so we're going to start with the adult. Now, the adult is the everyday part. It's the part that goes out and does life. It's the logical part. It's the everyday part. It's the part that pays bills and, you know, brings up the kids if it goes to work, you know, does all that everyday stuff, washing, ironing, cooking, cleaning, all of that stuff. That's the adult part that does life. And so we're going to break you up into two parts. And to make it easy, we're going to look at the natural part as the part when you're running well, when things are okay. Excuse me. When things are okay, what are you like? So I'm going to use a few words to help you understand. So if you're in that okay space as the adult, are you a reasonable human being? Are you a reasonable? Can you be reasonable? Like people can reason with you. So 1 being not at all when you're feeling okay, 10 being yeah, I'm very reasonable. Okay, so we're going to put it down in that section, the natural adult section, and we're just going to put a number between 1 and 10. So say you said, I'll use me as an experience because, and I'll talk about me when probably I was in my 20s, and because that's when I was probably at my lowest, you know, as my biggest form, and that will give you an idea. So if I share with you my stuff, and then you can equate it to yours. So where are you at with that? So as a natural adult, when I was going okay, I was very reasonable. I'd have said definitely 7 out of 10. So I'm going to put a 7 in that column. Okay, was I always appropriate? Yeah, I think I was. Even I was very much taught to do the right thing, behave, you know how to act in public, you know, like to control myself. So I would say when I'm okay, yeah, I was definitely sort of 7. Diplomatic, always knew the right thing to say. Yes, I've always been very diplomatic. I always kind of felt like I was good with people. I always have been, even when I was quite younger. So this is when I'm running well, don't forget. When I was running well, I was good, you know. So I'd say that was another 7. Okay, was I controlled? Yes, when I was running well, I was very controlled. Probably too controlled, if anything. So yeah, that would be another 7. Was I decisive? Did I make decisions well, effective decisions? Probably. Yeah, probably. I was an effective decision maker. Yeah, I'll give myself another 7. Was I fair-minded? Yes. My mum was always really good at being fair. She always treated us the same. And I think I taught how to be fair-minded. She treated everyone the same, so especially us 4 girls, so that was always good. So I would think I was always fair-minded. So I've scored 7. When I'm in an okay place in that adult space, I would score probably 7 out of 10. Okay, now we're going to move over to the adult where I'm adapted. So this is when I'm not going well. This is when I'm running rough. This is when I'm struggling. This is where I'm tired, worn out, weary, whatever. Well, this is when I'm not going well. Okay, when I wasn't going well, did I have lots of emotions? Yes, definitely. When I was a young person, my 20s, I'd be very emotional. Now, I might not look it on the outside, but all these big feelings would be rumbling in me. So there was lots of emotion. So if I think about 1, not at all, 10 being, yeah, I was lots of emotions, I'd have put 8. Okay, does that make sense? So now we're going to fill in the other side. This is the adapted adult. And so now we're going to look, when I was struggling, did I get into black and white thinking? It's all good, it's all bad, it's all right, it's all wrong. Sorry, I'm just going to grab a tissue. Did I get a bit black and white? Yeah, I thought it was the end of the world. If something bad happened, that was it. Very black and white kind of thinking when I'm in that struggle space. I'd probably put a 9 for that, okay? When I was struggling, did I act inappropriately? I would say yes. Quite a bit of the time I would. I'd be angry, I'd lash out, I'd be moody, I'd be sulky, I'd be miserable. So inappropriate, yeah, and I wouldn't do anything inappropriate. Well, lashing out or moodiness, is that appropriate? Was I inappropriate? I never did anything. Oh, I did a few times. I remember once the dentist, when I really hate the dentist. I had a lot of bad experiences with the dentist. Anyway, not too bad, but anyway, as a kid, was always at the dentist, loads of fillings. And I remember once he told me, and I don't know why I did it, and it was just one of those things, and he said, oh, I'm going to have to do something, and I can't remember what it was. It's years ago now. I was in my 20s, and he said he's going to have to do something, and I actually spat in his face. I think it was just a reaction to fear or something. I had something in my face, obviously, I don't know. So yeah, there were times I didn't always act appropriately. So I'd give myself an 8. When I'm struggling, I don't always act appropriately. Did I sometimes act out of control? Yes. If I was angry, I'd get very ragey. I'd lash out. I'd maybe shout, yell. I remember running up the stairs and pulling all the bedclothes off my bed. I mean, it wasn't that bad, but I was, angry. So I'd say 8. Can't make decisions. I think when you're in that struggle space, it is hard to make wise decisions. You probably make decisions, but were they wise? Probably not. So, I mean, I'm going to give myself 7 for that. When I'm in that adult struggle space, do I feel weak and ineffective? Absolutely. Yeah, I feel like nothing's hopeless, helpless, miserable, can't do anything. Everything's shit, that black and white all kind of feeds into it. So I'd say 7. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to look at my natural compared to my adapted, and I'm going to ask myself, what is the percentage of time, and this is when I'm 20, don't forget, when I'm in my 20s, what percentage of the time would I be acting out of that okay space compared to that struggle space? And so appropriate, inappropriate, in control, out of control, can't make a decision, can't make a decision. What percentage of the time do you think I would be coming? And so this is what you've got to ask yourself. What percentage of the time are you coming from that natural compared to the adapted? And I would have said probably 60 adapted, 40 not. I mean, I struggled quite a bit. So I'm just going to write 60 adapted percent and 40 natural. You see that? So I put my numbers down, and it just helps me think about, I know obviously I'm doing this when I was 20 because that's when I was really struggling. I'm a lot better now. I would say 99% of the time I'm coming from my natural, and that is because I've done a shitload of work on myself, right? Obviously maybe 98%, like there are moments where I am struggling, but they're very rare, and I know how to manage myself when I am in that space. So it's been a huge shift for me. But back then I would definitely 40% coming out of my natural, 60% coming out of my adaptive. Well, obviously I'd hope to be coming 100% out of my natural, so 40%, that's quite low, I think. Anyway, moving on. So now we're going to go into the emotional. Do you remember we talked about the child part being holding all the emotions? And so the emotions, that's what we're focusing on. So when you're in an okay place and things are running well, are you generally quite happy? I think when I was 20, I was quite happy, but I would have said maybe 6 or 7. 1 being not at all, 10 being super happy. I think I got up to about 6 or 7. That's probably as much as I would go up to. Was I truly joyful in my heart? Yeah, I could be in moments. I'd say maybe 7. Did I ever feel carefree? And now as a 20-year-old, I don't think I did. I think I had very much low self-esteem. I was a people pleaser, probably a perfectionist. I didn't know who I was. So I probably wasn't as carefree as I like to think I would be. So let me put a 5 for that. Content. Was I deeply emotionally content within myself? No. I really didn't like myself. I'd have probably gone as far as saying I really hated some aspects of myself. I hated the fact that I felt sort of very emotional a lot of the time, and I didn't like it. So maybe 4. Not very content. At ease, same kind of word, same thing. 4. Okay. So now we're going to move on to the other side. This is when I'm struggling. So that emotional part of me. So when I'm struggling, sometimes I feel like I'm just surviving emotionally. I can honestly say my first 26 years of my life, I felt like my heart was kind of in pieces. I felt very vulnerable, ashamed, angry, guilty, resentful. I didn't like myself at all. So 1 being not at all, 10 being did I feel like I was surviving emotionally? I'd probably say 8. What's the other one? Wounded. Did I feel wounded? Definitely. I felt that there was a wound inside my heart, my emotional part, that I didn't really see any way out of. So yes, definitely 8. 1 being not at all, 10 being, yeah, super wounded. That feeling of wounded. Did I feel stuck? Yeah, I just thought that was it. I mean, this is where you're at. You know, when you're not well, you can't often see yourself in any different way. So I definitely would have felt stuck. Maybe 7. So I've got some emotional words here, like numb. I don't think I ever really felt numb. I probably did at times. I think I was more angry because I had issues with anger. So resentful, pissed off, angry, frustrated, they would have been 9 out of 10, definitely. All those words, you know. Guilty, yes, always felt guilty for something. Ashamed, I wouldn't have said it at the time because I don't think I knew what shame was, but I definitely struggled with shame attacks. I had these shame attacks where I'd go bright red and I just feel like I wanted, and you know the difference between shame and guilt. Shame says I am wrong, guilt says I've done something wrong. I definitely felt like I was wrong. So shame, that would have been 9. Angry, yeah, that I said angry, didn't I? So there's all these like guilty, angry, sad, emotion words, and now emotions are usually one word. So sad, angry, happy. So, but we're talking about the negative. So yeah, I would have definitely felt angry, ashamed, frustrated. And so you can put numbers down. Lonely. Did I feel lonely? Yeah, I felt like I was the only one that felt very alone. I felt like there was no one there for me. Yeah, I did feel very lonely. So that would have been 9. So, okay, now I'm going to look back, and obviously I'm looking back from when I was 20. So what percentage of the time was I coming out of that very much natural, happy, upbeat, you know, content, compared to the wounded, struggling, lonely, angry, frustrated? Or definitely, I'd say 80%, I'd say adapted. 80% and 20%. Can you see what we're doing here? We're trying to sort of look at ourselves quite objectively and go and really understand where I was then. Now I would say definitely 95%. You know, obviously I don't think anyone ever gets 100%, but I must admit I am reaping the benefits of all my hard work, so which is fantastic. But back then I'd have definitely said natural was 20% of the time, and 80% I was coming out of my adapted self. So as you can see, I put the numbers and the percentage. So those percentages back when I was younger is pretty low. Now the parent part is the voice inside your head, you know, the thinker, the judger. We talked about this. So we're going to look at what some people don't even know they've got a thinker and judger. I don't think I could tell there was a very harsh inner critic. There was a very condemning part of me, but I don't think I ever really related to a loving, kind voice. I don't think I ever had one. Not when I was younger. I mean, I do now, but not when I was in my 20s. So what I'm talking about in this instance is the parent part. So the voice inside your head. So is there a voice inside your head that really cares for you? Well, back when I was 20, I'd have said 1 being not at all, 10 being, yeah, there is a voice inside my head that cares for me. I'd have put 2. I really did think there was a voice inside my head that really cared for me. Okay, was there a voice inside my head that really liked me? No, not at all. 1. Is there a voice inside my head that talks nicely to me? No. 1. And this is when I'm okay, right? So there was no nice voice inside my head, even when I was okay. I can't ever recall having one. Is there a voice inside the head that really respects me? No, I would have said so. 2. Is there a voice inside my head that was kind to me? No, not at all. I really didn't recognise any kind of kindness. Was there a part of me that learned from the mistakes? I think I did. It's funny because I do think, only because if I made a mistake, I would feel completely and utterly shamed and awful. And so I damn well made sure I didn't make that mistake because I did not want to feel ashamed and bad any more than I had to. So I think I did kind of learn from my mistakes. Say I'll put 7. Okay, so what about the adapted part? This is when you're struggling. This is when you're not running well. Okay, is there a voice inside your head that's very critical of you? Yeah, there was a great big voice that said, you're a piece of crap. So I would have said 9. Okay. Was there a voice inside my head that was harsh? So is there a voice inside of you that's very harsh? Yeah, 9. I couldn't do anything right. This voice inside my head was very critical. Is there a voice inside my head that's very judgmental of me? Yes, 9. Is there a voice inside my head that's very blaming of me? Absolutely, I was to blame for everything. 10. Is there a voice inside my head that talks harshly to me? I think I've said that already. Yeah, so meanly. Yeah, there's a horrible voice inside my head. There was when I was younger. And is there a part of me that's indulgent? Overindulgent, eats too much, drinks too much, smokes too much of anything? Yeah, there probably was. I loved food even back then, and I could be a pig. So I'd say 8. Okay, so back then when I was 20, and you're talking about you could do this as now. So what percentage of the time is there a kind, loving voice inside my head compared to the harsh, critical, judging voice inside my head? Now, back then, I'd have said 99% harsh, critical, judgmental. And 1% loving, kind, and caring. Okay, so can you see? Yeah. 1% was the natural, 99% is the adapted, uncaring, kind. Okay, so now when we look at that, I can see that my natural is quite low, 1%, 40, 20. Now what we know is that if we have a harsh, critical judge, we tend to have a deeply wounded inner child. Now, if this relationship is not good between the parent and the child, then the adult is unhealthy. Can you see that? Now, I think that is well worth doing that, and I know it takes a bit of time, but if you stop the video at the points where I've asked, you know, the different things, and I mean, I can always send you a list of the words that I use when I'm going through this with a client to help you understand. So if you want that sheet, sing out and I will send it to you. And this is understanding, oh my gosh, I have this really harsh, critical judge inside my head. And that is why I have a deeply wounded little girl inside my heart. Now, somehow I got a very negative script, usually from childhood, school, you name it. You know, I wasn't bright. I felt like I didn't really have a lot going for me. I wasn't really good at anything, and felt like, you know, I didn't get attention or time or energy. Mum and Dad were too busy, and so that left me with a lot of low self-worth. And so I mean, that was when I was 20. That was like, when I was a kid, so years later I'm still struggling, I'm still feeling crap about myself. And so this is about recognizing that when you find out that you have this harsh, critical, unkind, judge inside your head, of course you will have this deeply wounded little girl inside your heart, because that relationship between head and heart isn't good. It's off kilter, and we have to bring it back to a more loving, kind voice inside your head, so that part of you can feel safe. Because the reason that little emotional part is struggling is because you are constantly being condemned by the mind. Well, you're not good. You're constantly getting that message that you're not good enough. You're an idiot. Like, stop feeling the way you feel. Often what you saw growing up is what you do now. So if mum and dad were very dismissive or neglectful or didn't like your feelings, then you learnt to repress and deny them. Well, that's what they did to you, and now you're doing it to you, if that makes sense. And so when you have an emotion, you repress, deny and avoid. Well, that's harsh, that's judged, that's not healthy, that's not going to work for you. How do you think that part of you is going to feel? Well, it's going to, so take the parent, the child, if I keep neglecting you, rejecting you, denying you, avoiding you, then how is that part of you going to feel? Lonely, scared, vulnerable, not good enough. Do you see what I'm saying? So this is about understanding that you're the enemy inside of you, and if that's the case, then if you change that script, then you can stop being the enemy and start being your own best friend, your own coach, your own support network. You can be there for yourself in a way that maybe no one wasn't there for you growing up. Does this make sense? So before we even move into the experiential part of which is going to be the next video, I want you to understand where you're at now. So you would do that for where you are at now. And if you realize that even if your numbers, if you're more in the adaptive parent, then you're going to have a wounded inner child. And even if it's 60% and, your kind voice, it always surprises me when I ask clients, that voice inside your head, because I never had one at all. I wouldn't have recognized a loving, kind, supportive voice inside my head at all. And it always surprised me the amount of people go, oh yeah, there is a part of me that respects me. And I'm like, wow, that's great, oh my gosh. I didn't have that. I didn't respect me at all. I loathed me. I really did a jobby on me, and this made such a difference when I realized the enemy's inside of me. It's an inside job, because no one else was being mean to me, no one else was criticizing me or judging me, or when I projected my own imaginations onto everybody else, of course, so I thought they might be, but actually they weren't. It was me. And when you don't connect, you project. So I wasn't connecting with how I was feeling, and I was projecting, what I thought other people were thinking about me. So because I was judging me, I projected that out and thought they were judging me. And that's why you are the source of everything. So if we help heal you, everything will change, because you are the source of everything. I hope this makes sense. And maybe you have to go over it a couple of times so you can really get it. But what we're trying to establish is, what percentage of the time are you coming from that harsh inner critic compared to the loving voice inside your head? Or that loving, happy, content child that's carefree and feels loved and cared for, compared to that stuck, just in that existence phase, sad, lonely, angry, resentful. Because if you're stuck there, nothing's going to change until you do this work between you and you, because you are the source of everything. You might want to point your finger out there and go, oh, it's their fault. Well, you can't control them. You can only control this. So come back to you. So I know it takes a bit of time. Look, we've taken 24 minutes doing this, but I think it is well worth it, so you can get an understanding of just where you're at before we move into the experiential exercise. So this can be quite confronting when you think, ooh, the enemy's inside of me. It's that harsh, critical inner voice. And what we do to ourselves is sometimes far greater than what we would ever do, because I would never talk to anyone the way I spoke to me. And that's why I was in a lot of pain, and I struggled, and I felt so crap, you know, because the voice was always saying, you're an idiot, you're stupid, you're ugly, you're fat, you're like, you know, like, you're not enough, you know, you're all this negative stuff constantly. And so this is the don't change, heal part. You know, you've got to heal that relationship between the head and the heart and come into alignment with that part of you. And I'm telling you, you will reap the benefits of all this hard work. So if you stayed till the end, brilliant, well done. Thank you for listening, and come back for the next part, which is, I might try and put it out quite quickly, maybe in a couple of days, so you can go straight to the next part of this, which is where we introduce those two parts to each other. So it's very experiential, and it can actually be quite emotional. So anyway, I'll leave it there. Bye for now. Bye.